I love Harvest Moon, but let me be completely upfront with you. I don't love this game. In fact, this is my second least favorite handheld Harvest Moon game, right up there next to Puzzle to Harvest Moon, a game that shouldn't even be in this series. But unlike that game, this one is actively trying to be a Harvest Moon game. Okay, I'm not even gonna lie here. I eschewed my whole recording about 5 hours worth of content for about 15 minutes, and that means two things. First of all, it's very indicative of how I feel about this game because I couldn't stomach playing more than 15 minutes of it, and second of all, it means we have to motor, so let's get into this fast. The story is like pretty much every other Harvest Moon game. You've inherited a farm and you have to turn it around and turn it into something great, or else you get haunted by your grandfather's spirit forever, so fix it. And I gotta say right off the bat, this game is really ambitious because it's basically trying to take the gameplay of Harvest Moon on the Super Nintendo and bring it to the Game Boy. But that ambition can only take you so far, and this one ends up basically being a half-baked mess. Let's just talk about all the great things you can do in Harvest Moon. You can grow plants, you can raise animals, you can go talk to people, you can write your own story, you can go date girls and eventually get married, you can forage in mountains and see all sorts of wildlife and stuff. You can basically live your life. And then this game basically says, whoa, 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 let's just hold on there, Skippy. Back up to raising your animals, and then cut all the extra content, and maybe we'll include that in a sequel or something down the line. We don't want to give the players too much to do. Okay, that's probably not realistically why 90% of all of Harvest Moon on the Super Nintendo's content isn't here. It's probably due to size restrictions of fitting it onto a Game Boy cart, because again, ambitious as all hell, but then you have to realize that leaves you with growing plants and raising animals, and you better enjoy that because that's your lot. In fact, as kind of an additional slap in the face, while you can leave your farm, instead of being able to walk around the town and talk to people, develop relationships, do anything that would be kind of life sim-esque, no, you're just sort of presented with a series of insulting menus that will inevitably boot you back to your farm. In fact, the full list of characters you can talk to in this entire game are, sometimes people will come meet you during special events in front of your house and then walk away, never to be seen again. Your magical, invisible, mystic shipper guy who doesn't ever seem to show up but still pays you for stuff you ship. Oh, and the harvest elves that live in your shed because reasons. So if you want to get married to anyone, I hope you're not speciesist and in turn very tolerant of elves, and you don't mind that they don't move in with you and still just basically make a mess of your shed. Okay, so we've talked about what this game can't do, which is, well, most everything in Harvest Moon. What does this game add to the whole Harvest Moon formula, though? Well, there are some crops you can grow in winter, and while that is kind of revolutionary for Harvest Moon, in fact this is one of the few Harvest Moon games that I know that does this, that's also because if they didn't let you grow something during winter, you'd have absolutely nothing to do during winter. So that's more of a necessity than something I should really compliment this game for. That's really it. You can water your plants, you can feed your livestock, you can raise your livestock, you can sometimes walk them out of the barn and watch a small cutscene, and then you get judged about how poorly you raised your animals and grew your plants because that's everything you do in making this farm prosper. Oh, there is one cool thing about this game. If you don't completely screw up and become the ranch master, you get kind of cool tools. First of all, you get a fishing rod. Second of all, you get an umbrella that when you use it, suddenly it just starts raining, automatically watering everything. That's awesome, but in order to get those, you have to become the ranch master, which means you have to succeed at making this ranch awesome, and again, I can't stomach playing this for more than 15 minutes. In fact, in my entire lifetime of owning this game, I've honestly never gotten that far. I think I might have once gotten to that point, but I didn't succeed, so honestly I've never gotten to experience them, and I'm very sad about that. But then I realized the trade-off would be I'd have to play more of this, and I don't want to do that. So ultimately, an optimistic person would probably say this game distills Harvest Moon down to its basest core components, and gives you the most solid core Harvest Moon experience available, I'm not that person. I very much like wandering around the mountains, seeing wildlife walking around, talking to people, dating them, eventually maybe leading to marriage. I like the whole life sim experience of Harvest Moon, and exactly 100% of that got axed. The overall presentation to Harvest Moon GB is average. Visually, it's pretty fantastic, given that it's trying to be Harvest Moon on the Super Nintendo, but on the Game Boy. And it has a lot of neat little visual touches, such as, like the original Harvest Moon, your plant sprites changing when you water them, ever so slightly. Nice touch, nice touch. And while going through the town and talking to people is done entirely by, once again, that very insulting menu system, you do have some very nice portraits, which the original game didn't have. Hell, Harvest Moon 64 didn't really have super detailed portraits like this. These are really nice. But audio-wise, this game falls hard because, while the songs might be relatively decent, they do sound very plingy. And to be fair, that is a limitation of the hardware, but even without that, each song is very short and they loop, and you're going to get sick of them real quick. Now, if you want a copy of Harvest Moon GB on the Game Boy, holy crap, this thing costs like $40. I'm pretty sure I got my copy for like $5 back in the day, and even then I still didn't think it was worth it. I don't think it was worth it now. And to be fair, part of my whole disliking this game, aside from the fact that it axed pretty much everything I liked from Harvest Moon, comes from the fact that at the end of the day, even back then I realized this wasn't the game I was trying to buy. I was trying to buy Harvest Moon GB 3 on the Game Boy Color, which basically had the entire Harvest Moon package on a single tiny cartridge. Now, unfortunately, Harvest Moon GB 3 is very rare, pretty hard to find, and I have to admit I'm still desperately trying to find a copy. In fact, it's like the most wanted Game Boy Color game out there for me right now. But on topic, don't get this game, it's terrible. Try and find Harvest Moon GB 3, and if you got a 3DS, you can actually download that from the DS Virtual Console Store, or whatever it was called, for like $5, and that's a way better game, way better deal, because again, even paying $5 for Harvest Moon GB, unless you're a big collector, you're probably not going to enjoy this very much, because it does cut pretty much everything from Harvest Moon out of this Harvest Moon game. Or alternatively, if you want a slightly easier to find, slightly cheaper Harvest Moon game, get Friends of Mineral Town on the Game Boy Advance, which is relatively inexpensive, and is not only significantly better than this game, because it is, but it's easily one of the best Game Boy Advance games. So do yourself a favor, get that game, ignore this one.